Hello. Good evening, because 4 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. I'm actually in Maryland, in a college park. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I just want to say, how are you? How are you doing? Um, I It's happened to be on Sunday. It's Sunday 19, so today's 19. It's marking the last week of the 3rd of October. Next week, you're going to be entering the last week of October. So time runs fast, especially if you're making these videos. Last time I mentioned how the war between Israel and Palestine was getting over, was peace deal. But today I received the news from, I believe it's from Associated Press. That's where I get my news, that Israel has actually sent some attack in Palestine again. So we don't know how this peace deal is gonna go. That's why I mentioned in my video that this false hope sometimes doesn't really bring in the hope as we thought. So, anyways, I'm just gonna move on to my topic. Yesterday I made a video in the dark, so it wasn't really productive. But today, as you can see, the light is lining my face, so it's much better, much clearer, and again making a video in my own car. I want to repeat what I said yesterday. I mentioned how we need the healthcare system in the poor nations. Just don't forget, I'm still on the topic of the poverty trap, and how the individuals can be trapped in a poverty and then remain in a poverty for a long time. And then the activists and the organizations, they might throw in some money and try to help those who need help, improve the community. But that help only comes as a small portion, and then after that it kind of fades away. And we see this happening many times, where the rich nations send the money to poor nations, and then that money goes in, the rich people buy cars and they consume, like it's a positive thing, like something happens, right? There is a positive shock, like the curve goes up. It shows the economy is booming, things are going great. But once that money is cut off, once that funding is cut off, we see these countries going backwards. They don't go backward, they just down slope. And when this has been happening so many times, and there's been a research to why this is happening, and it turns out that the poor people are just poor. When people are poor, they have poor nutrition, they have poor health care, they have poor performance. They don't really have the productivity, even though we might think that poor nations are productive. But then we realize that the productivity is coming from the outside. Like the money, the income is coming from the outside. There is no income coming out of the people earned for themselves. There is a productivity of some level, because every society, every community produces something, but the output is not enough to sustain the whole population. And as part of the reason is could be one of the fundamental issues, like lack of high productivity in agriculture, lack of high productivity in healthcare, and access to things that they need. So yesterday I mentioned about healthcare, how we need to improve the medical systems, ensure that we build hospitals and research centers within African nations and many other nations, but I'm focusing specifically in Africa, ensuring that people have access to medical. The farmers, they have access to medical. The farmers have access to some sort of treatment if they need to. So that was yesterday's video. It was dark, so hopefully you were able to see me. If you did not, probably heard my voice. I'm not gonna repeat the same thing. Today I'm going to move on to another topic because this research paper is going to be presented by November, so I have to move fast. I have to move on to a new topic. So one of the key reasons to why nation is staying in poverty for so long, it's lack of the infrastructure. Remember, I mentioned the nutrition, then I mentioned the healthcare, then I mentioned education, or the basic education, but the other thing is the infrastructure. Imagine you have a farm, you grow maize or tomatoes or whatever you grow, and then let's say in Uganda, for example, you grow these cash crops in a rural part of Uganda, in a mountains area. Uganda has a beautiful mountain area outside Kampala, but everything's success, everything's perfect, but you cannot ship these goods to the consumer. You have 2.2 million people living in the city of Kampala, just one city. We're not talking about like other cities like Mbarara, Makasese, Kabale, those areas. Talking about one city, Kampala, 2.2 million people, and there's enough land to sustain those people. They say farmers are given tools, they can grow, they're given education, they're given the hospitals, they're given research, like they're doing great. However, the productivity is high, and now it's time to supply the market, the external market, and they cannot ship those goods because there is lack of infrastructure. And African nations have invested money in building infrastructure. Like you go to Uganda, for example, you will see some roads are in good condition, some are not. There is lack of access to air transportation. There's not that many airports in the country to transport goods. There is lack of quick and fast and safe transportation, like trains. The last train that was built in Uganda was from back in 1960s, from the colonies, and is when it's getting run down. And that's because of lack of basic education. When people, even if you give people beautiful roads, beautiful highways, beautiful airports from someone else, but they don't know how to maintain them, at some point they're gonna run down. So once we finish the basic, like I mentioned, these are step by step. I'm not skipping. Like first you fix food, sure people are eating, people have enough food to eat, not like simple food, like enough food to eat, and they have enough left over to consume in case of an emergency like drought or climate change. They can consume that food. The second one is to make sure people can have basic education, so that they know how to grow food, they know how to improve and come up with new ideas on how to grow more and more food, increase production. The third, of course, is the healthcare, ensure that people have the healthcare, they can access hospitals and medicine and everything they need. And the fourth is the infrastructure. Infrastructure comes later. You don't ship something that you don't actually have, right? You can't just build. We see in the poor countries where the government rush to build highways, rush to build electricity, they rush to build the basic amenities and basic stuff, water, right? But people actually don't need this. Like for instance, if you look in Uganda, for example, they have what they call taps. Taps are like the water that you drink anywhere, right? Sometimes it's clean, sometimes it's not. But when they build these taps, like brand new taps, in the next 5 years they are destroyed because they are not built. They come from the outside. People are not used to those things. People don't understand the power, the energy. People don't understand what goes into building those things. Like when I came to the United States, after working in the industry, in different jobs, in different companies, and going to school at the same time, I now understand the value. Like if I see a car, I understand the value. I know how to maintain a vehicle. When I see a house, I know what goes into building a house. When I see a train, I know what goes into building a train. If I see a bank, I know what goes into having a bank. So if people don't have basic education, no matter how much you give them, they won't be able to sustain them. If people don't have enough nutrition, no matter how many times you educate them, no matter how many books you give to them, they're not going to be able to, learn and succeed. These the things that I'm mentioning right now are real things. These are real. These are happening. People go through these things every single day. It happens in the United States, except that in this country it's much lower. It's not prevalent compared to like poor nations like in Africa. So infrastructure is a key. Make sure people have access to roads. Roads are key to make sure that people can move back and forth, transport goods. When I say roads, though, I am not talking about like tarmac roads. I'm not talking about like those things exist in Africa. People have nice roads, they have nice infrastructure, but this is much deeper in Africa when it comes to infrastructure, right? For example, when I grew up in Uganda, you can't just build a highway in someone's land. People don't want the land in their own highway. You can't build a train in the middle of a park, national park. People may not like it because people live there for a long time. You can't build an airport. You can't just, the government cannot just go to a random place and say we're gonna build an airport here, unless it's like a dictatorship, like China, for example, or North Korea or Russia. African countries, they are not, even though they have dictators, they are not, you can't just dictate people. People are tougher, people are much stronger than the government. They have strengths, they have the family members have been living in the same place. But to ensure that we can improve the infrastructure. Hello, I just arrived home. I recorded a video earlier. The video is supposed to be a 15 minutes video, but unfortunately my memory card, it was getting full, needed to be cleaned out. So I only recorded 11 minutes video, and the other 3 minutes became virus. So when I was uploading on my laptop, I realized that one section of the video is functioning, the other section is automatically a virus. So I use GoPro when I make these videos, and what the GoPro does, it records the first section of 11 minutes, then it stops, then it records another section of, then it keeps doing that. So it records in chunks, like in a half. So I was debating, as you can see here, I am actually sort of editing my videos. So this is one I recorded earlier. I think I should play it. Anyway, I was recording this area, and that's why I was editing. And then I felt like I should upload this a half video, like 11 minutes. 11 minutes is enough. Before, I did not mean to record 15. I wanted to record 9 minutes, but I've been trying to record 15. I cannot go more than 15. So I'm making this video just to finish the actual video to mark 15 minutes. So what I was talking about earlier during the day in my own vehicle, it was the increase in infrastructure, and a lot of has to do with the legal fees. When people think about building infrastructure in nations like in Africa, we oftentimes don't realize the legal system is tough. People don't want those trains, people don't want those roads, big infrastructure, big offices. People will refuse, and like I mentioned in my other video, this is something that can be fixed by the institutions, but it's much more harder on the ground than we can imagine. In the United States, the land was acquired by colonies, and then they later on became the government land. So if the government wants to build a highway in someone's land, or a certain project like a research, a military project, they pay some amount of money to the specific person. They hire a private company, they do an acquisition, they look at the price, so they are not taken advantage of, they send the land. You also have people in the United States who just love to give out their free land to be used by the government. Like I know a ton of universities in the USA, a ton of hospitals in the USA, a ton of projects, research projects are built on the land donated by somebody. We don't see that in African nations. So anyway, so when I was making a video about the infrastructure, the point was that we need more infrastructure in Africa, and that is going to solve the poverty, or this rope of poverty that doesn't end. So that's all I have for today. Like always, I'll see you tomorrow in my next video. Bye bye. Ciao ciao.